Okay, so we're going to talk about building or choosing a sustainable strength program. You might call it DIY strength and conditioning. So this is just about picking a method of training that's going to work for you, and some of the things you might need to think about when you are deciding to follow a path of strength and conditioning. So first thing to bear in mind, it's pretty obvious, but you need to set your goals. So most people fall into one of two categories here. They're either looking to build strength and maybe muscle size, or they're looking to lose fat. Okay, so set your goals first. Decide actually what you want to achieve before you start picking a program. Okay, it sounds obvious, but it's something you need to sort of bear in mind. And now, the right program for you should have a couple of sort of key aspects to it. So, one, it should probably incorporate some sort of progressive overload. So that just means that we're applying more force over time to the muscles to stimulate a training response. That just means that the program will progressively get harder. Okay, it could either be sets or reps or total volume, resistance. It could be intensity of the work you're doing, or it might even be just the rest periods decreasing or whatever, but it should progress over time. Okay, if you progressively overload your muscles, then you are going to get stronger, you are going to get fitter. It needs to be specific to your goals. So it goes back to being clear on your goals and defining what you're doing. So following a fat loss program might not be particularly helpful if you're looking to gain muscle mass, because we know if you're looking to gain muscle mass, we're going to need to be in a calorie surplus. And we're going to need to have lots and lots of rest and all these other bits and pieces. So make sure you pick a program specific to what you want to achieve. And bear in mind that, everyone is different. So just by following a program that your mate has done and had good results with, or some, celebrity is pushing on Instagram or social media, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have the same results with it. So each person is different genetically, and each person obviously is very different in terms of the lifestyle they have. So make sure that you pick a program that fits in with what you're trying to do and what you're trying to be as a person outside of the gym environment as well. So if you choose to go down the strength and hypertrophy route, a couple of things you probably need to look out for are the differences between strength and hypertrophy or muscle mass to start with. They're usually set out slightly differently. Strength is usually 3 to 5 sets, maybe 3 to 8 reps. 75 to 90% of your 1 rep max, that's the amount of weight you can lift of any one repetition. And generally you'll be in a calorie surplus when you do that. So when you're eating, you'll be eating slightly more than you usually would if you're really looking to kind of increase your strength or bulk up. In hypertrophy, it's similar but not the same. So it might be 3 to 10 sets of 8 to 12 reps. It's usually about 50 to 75% of 1RM. So because there's more reps, the weight tends to be lighter. You can expect a little bit more lactic acid build up when you're doing this. You can expect more of a burn during these types of training programs, and again really looking to sort of have a calorie surplus. So just make sure that you're if you're picking a program or you're choosing a program for strength and or hypertrophy, that it has some of those key elements in there as well. If you're looking to shed a bit of timber, so if you're looking for fat loss, really what you're looking for is a program that has nutrition focus. You'll be working in a calorie deficit, and you'll be focusing on non-training movement or non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Yeah, it's a clever way of saying moving around, basically. Predominantly probably be made up of a combination of high-intensity interval training and strength training. Yeah, with a few more bits and pieces thrown in there as well, I would think. Usually when you're doing this type of program, your strength is really at a maintenance phase, so it's unlikely doing this type of program that your strength is going to suddenly go up. It will probably stay the same, and you might get a slight drop in performance, because obviously you'll be working the calorie deficit, and usually that's 3 to 5 times per week, maybe even more if you take into account sort of what I would call non-specific training movements. So it could be just going out for a light bike ride or a walk. You might be looking at training every day if you're doing that as well. The other thing you need to be doing is recording your data. So we have a little ebook on this called Build Your Body Like a Business, and that basically just shows you how to track the data to make sure that you're heading in the right direction. Because like we always say, if you don't keep score, how do you know you're winning? So the link, I think, is in the course, and you should be able to read through that and give a good understanding of how and what you should be tracking, depending on what sort of program you're following. And most programs will have a good idea of what you should be tracking, and they'll have that built into them. But if you're building one yourself, then you're going to need to understand what it is you're trying to measure in terms of moving forward and getting to your results. Okay, so choose wisely when you're picking a program. Most people just kind of pick the first one that sounds cool, or they think they might enjoy, but we tend to do that in periods of super high motivation and everything seems cool and rosy, but you will have a dip at some point. So before you choose a program, we have a little video on doing a pre-mortem, but basically what you want to do is ask yourself, how much time do you have? Look at the program you're doing. Is it sort of 6 sessions of 2 hours a week? If it is, and you've only got 3 hours a week to train, then the program's just not going to work. It's not going to fit, and you just won't adhere to it. Think about your resources. So what have you got access to? Do you have access to a full gym? Do you have to work out at home? Have you only got like maybe 1 or 2 pieces of equipment? If all you've got is a kettlebell, then there's no point doing some big bodybuilding training plan that requires you to have loads of access to loads of different bits of kit and the swimming pool and all the rest of it. You've got to train to what you have. So don't be trying. Don't look at doing programs that don't sort of incorporate the resources that you have access to. Think about what the impact will be on others. This especially comes into effect when you're talking about sort of fat loss programs, because obviously it might require some behaviour change, things like eating slightly less, and obviously changing your eating habits, which can sort of impact on family and other people. So think about how the impact will affect everyone else in your circle, and obviously make sure that you've cleared it with them first, because obviously if your habits change, your behaviours change, or you're required to maybe spend half an hour here, there, or whatever it might be, then make sure that you've kind of have a chat with everybody to make them understand why it's important to you, why you're doing it, and how it benefits them as well as you. Okay, because what you're trying to do is create an ecosystem where it kind of fits in with your lifestyle, and that's what the last point is about. You've got to ask yourself, does this dovetail in with my current lifestyle or not? And if it kind of sort of pushes everything out a little bit too much, then you're probably doing the wrong program, and you're not going to adhere to it. So you've got to make sure that these things fit in with what you're doing currently. If they don't, then you're going to be in trouble from the start. Okay, so bear that in mind. And also, the law of individual differences suggests we will get a different result from the same program. So, like I say, it's going back to saying that if you just follow someone else's program blindly, don't expect the same results that they get. If you just follow the Rock's training program that he posts online or that he puts on social media, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to end up looking like the Rock after 12 weeks or whatever. You have to take into account various different variables, like training age, your personal strengths and weaknesses, what you're actually trying to do, the point you're starting from as well. If you're sort of quite overweight at the moment and you're looking to lose a bit of fat, then you probably have a very steep fat loss curve on the front end, as opposed to if you went into a fat loss program really, really lean, it's going to be a lot harder to lose significant amounts of fat over a short period of time. So you need to kind of manage your expectations in that point. So yeah, there's some basics, sort of a very quick rundown of how to pick a training program. In terms of tracking and whatnot and the data we use, we have a very sort of specific way of tracking all our data for the people that work with us, so they know how they're getting on, they know they're on the right track, and they know they're sort of winning or losing, if you like. You don't have to go into as much detail as this. It can just be kept in a training diary or something, but you must track your data. You must kind of monitor your progression and make sure that you're moving forward all the time, because what gets measured gets managed. And if you know where you're headed and you know what you're doing, then all you've got to worry about is adhering to the program, sticking to the program, and keep monitoring the data points coming in and make sure you're moving in the right direction. Okay, quick rundown of how to pick a training program, or maybe even how to build one yourself. Hope that helps. Let us know any feedback, guys. Thanks.